Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good following morning. It is March the 11th, 2021, AMA number 51. This is March 11th, very interesting date. This is really the year that in many ways last year everything stopped. So I wasn't sure when I said March 11th if it was 2020 or 2021. Could make a case that it's this year has been to some degree frozen. It's been a challenge. Anyway, this very excited today, very, very special guest, not only somebody who's I know very well, but wait for it, my sister, somebody who knows me very well. That's what's, that's a little bit, that'll be a little bit, as they say in Polish, kompromitujące, which in English, I guess, is compromising, but it's a little stronger in Polish. So I'm very excited in a few minutes for my sister, who happens to be not only bringing her on because she's my sister, I am bringing her on because she is an epidemiologist. So I never understood what an epidemiologist was until all this Corona business started. I didn't know what my sister did. And then everybody's talking about epidemiologists. So now I understand. But soon my sister, who is a epidemiologist, a professor at Mount Sinai in Columbia in New York, will join us and talk about, I think we'll have lots to talk about considering it is my sister. We can talk about Corona, and from an epidemiological point of view, we can try to fish out some embarrassing stories from my childhood, of which there are many. So we will see. Benji Lovett, hello. Good to see you, Benji Lovett. Sita, hi Sita, hi Dad. Dad, two of your children today on what you affectionately call TV. That's be a very nice day. Hi Neil, good to see you, Neil. Saul got the vac yesterday. Left arm feels sore, but you got it in the right arm. Uh-oh. Saul, I heard that, yeah, some people, if you're really lucky, you don't get it in either arm, if you know what I'm talking about, Saul. But we'll leave that for now. This week, we had, Kasha and I were very lucky. We had a visit from Kasha's sister and mom and nieces, her two nieces, Lila and Yulia, and two dogs. And Kasha's mom and sister and two nieces left to go back to Warsaw, and the dogs stayed with us. So we now have, besides Hanya, our dog Hanya, who we affectionately call Bitey, since she does occasionally like to bite us. We actually got her from the shelter 3 years ago exactly. So now for the next few weeks, we have our dog and two Chihuahuas, which is certainly challenging. Although, to be honest, let's be totally frank about it. As we all know, I'm at work all the day, most of the day. So the person who's doing the heavy lifting in terms of taking care of our animal menagerie at home is, of course, Kasha. So I can't complain too much, although a little bit I'll try. So it was fun having everybody here for the weekend. We had a big full house and we made pizza, which was exciting. My pizza with the new pizza oven. This was version 3 pizza, pretty good. I want to make pizza again, but considering it's such a hassle and there's a lot of cleanup and everything involved, Kasha feels we should wait a little bit, probably till the weather gets better. There was a big article about bagels in the New York Times, the saying that California bagels are better than New York bagels. I'll be happy to try it out myself and see if that's actually true. New York bagels are generally the best, although I've been on record as saying how great Montreal bagels are. And then a friend of mine from a long time ago posted a great article about 50 places, 50 best bagels across the US. And it made me, the photos were unbelievable. So if you're my friend on Facebook, and I guess if you're watching, you probably are, you can check that out. But some amazing bagels across the US. So I want to do a bagel tour. Hi, Marcel. Greetings from Marcel. Good to see you, Marcel. And I hope Marilla is with you and as well. Benji, you're naming your next dog Pierogi. Unless your next dog is more than one dog, you can name your dog Pierog, because pierogi, as all of us know, Benji, or should know, is plural, but we'll accept that. Generally in the US, I know when they say pierogi in the English language, they're talking about, oh, I'd like a pierogi, but it's really a pirog. Pierogi is the plural. In terms of what I've been watching, well, something interesting that we started watching, that I'm sure everybody watched years ago, we started yesterday watching Schitt's Creek, which we really liked. We watched a few episodes. It seems like the episodes are very short. They seem to be like 15 or 20 minutes, but maybe that's just felt that way. But we like that. So that's a new show for us. Actually, Eugene Levy, who's the star of the show, is on with Catherine O'Hara. And I remember back in the day, in the 70s and early 80s, I used to love watching SCTV, Second City Television, which was, I guess, officially a Canadian show from the Second City comedy troupe. And that they were both on that, Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara. So it was nice seeing them together. Hello, Rabbi Avi from sunny Israel. Well, Rabbi Avi, the rest of us aren't in such a sunny, warm place, but we appreciate it. We appreciate you constantly lording that over us. But all right, Avi, fair enough. We're happy to see you, Avi, even if you're teasing us about the weather. But the big news on TV this week was the Oprah interview with Harry and Meghan, the Sussexes. Now, we are, of course, here at the JCC on record as being fierce defenders of the royalty, considering our building was founded and opened by the Prince of Wales, the father of Prince Harry. That being said, I've got to say, and there's been a big split online and social media about who to believe, how much of it was just Meghan being an actress and not being very truthful. But I have to say, I really felt that she was being honest. And when somebody says that they've had suicidal thoughts and wasn't getting help and stuff, you have to take that seriously. And I don't think we can be cynical at a time like this or at any time about things like that. So I don't know. I don't think she was just, up there and pretending and had something to, I obviously had something to gain from it. Anybody who does the interview because they have something to gain. But I believe her. I believe that the issues that she brought up in terms of the royal family are real issues and hopefully will be dealt with. And you could really see the pain there. And I mean, yes, she's an actress, but it doesn't mean that if you're an actor or an actress, that you're not to be believed because you have the capability of acting. All of us are capable of acting, not only those in the category who act and get paid for acting. So I don't know. I don't like to look at it and say team Buckingham Palace or team Meghan and Harry, but I felt that Oprah did an amazing job with the interview and that there was to be believed. Survivor Day, we talked about it for the last couple of weeks. I had Michael Barenbaum on last week and we released it. So on this Monday, we put it out there. It was published in the Jerusalem Post, the op-ed of Michael Barenbaum and myself calling for a day specifically for Holocaust survivors. We've got some really good feedback, a lot of organizations, individuals interested. We're starting to build some momentum. So we are very excited. So go to holocaustsurvivorday.com. We'll soon be putting out more information of what that's going to start to look like. We have a committee of people that are very involved in the Holocaust commemoration world, in the Jewish world, that will help us form Holocaust Survivor Day. I think that there's the website is up as well. It looks really nice. You can go to the Jerusalem Post. We'll post also that the link to the op-ed that we wrote, and also a special shout out to Rabbi Avi Baumel, who gave us a ton of help on the op-ed. I personally, anything I ever write or publish, not that I'm doing it that much, to be honest, but I always run it by Avi, who's just great at helping me structure things and helping to put things in words that I don't always, not always so able to do. So thank you, Rabbi Avi, for that. You're really an author of it as well, and of the idea. And of course, Sebastian for coming up with the idea with me is, doing that is incredible. So we're excited about this idea. We really feel that we're going to be able to do some good and help the Holocaust survivors. And check out the logo as well. I'm proud of the logo. I think it looks really great. This week was something big coming up, which is the 78th anniversary of the liquidation of the Krakow ghetto in 1943. So March 1914, 15, 1943, 13, 14, sorry, 1943. So we will commemorate that this week with our friends from the New Krakow Friendship Society, Galicia Jewish Museum, and Stephen Wise Synagogue in New York, where we'll have an online program, and we've created some films where we've, as the JCC as well, where we've had someone read texts from survivors of the ghetto, which I think is going to be should be just a really interesting event that we're proud to work with those other partners, Galicia, who we work with all the time, and the New Krakow Friendship Society, who are people who are the descendants of people from Krakow, survivors and so forth, people from Krakow. Pesach coming up, we're going to do a nice online Seder, which is going to be very exciting, and we are looking forward to that. So lots coming up in the Jewish world, and with no further delay, I will introduce Katherine Ornstein, Dr. Katherine Ornstein, PhD, MPH. She is on the faculty of the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai in the Department of Geriatrics and Palliative Medicine and the Institute for Translational Epidemiology. Her research interests include caregiving, symptom burden, and the home-based and primary palliative care. I don't understand what any of that means. None of that, that's a foreign.
Where are you reading from?
I am reading from your Mount Sinai bio.
Oh.
We took that. I could have chosen more embarrassing sources, but I decided to be official. It looks like you are in your penthouse apartment overlooking beautiful Mount Kisco. No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should change that up.
Larchmont.
Sorry. I sometimes have to look professional.
No. You look very professional. How are you this morning, Katherine Ornstein?
I'm doing okay. Just getting ready for a day of Zooming.
As are all of us. We are heading toward the end of our day of Zooming. Kathy,
right.
Dad is watching. He's a loyal. I have about 7 or 8 absolute loyal, maybe 15 loyal victims. I was going to say viewers and victims, somewhat analogous in this point situation. But Dad is watching, so that's a good percentage of the orange.
Hi, Dad. Hi, Sita.
So Katherine and I will get along during this. Dad, don't worry. So, I was unsure how to structure this, how much of this should be embarrassing childhood stories, how much about epidemiology, but I thought we'd start off considering March 11th, I think is really the day that Corona hit big in the United States. This is really, in some ways, if we had to pick a 1-year anniversary, I think March 11th would be the anniversary of Corona in the US. Is that true?
No, it was actually
No.
for the US prior, which is why we started to kind of, go down in March, but yeah. But yes, it's true. It's like a year of this sort of quarantining and isolation. And I don't know when our schools ended, but it was about this time last year.
I know the NBA, this is when 2 NBA players tested positive and they shut down the NBA, which also set off a lot of things sort of in the public sphere. So maybe that's why that date is kind of in my head.
Yeah.
Now. So
yeah, no, it's amazing that it's been a year of this, and we're still, but it's exciting here in New York. It does feel sort of a little bit more positive in terms of, people are getting vaccinated. The vaccines work. Go get one if you're eligible and you're listening, and you can. And it really is making a difference. We are seeing less people in the hospitals. There's still, it's still a situation, of course, but it feels a little bit more like things are moving in a positive direction, which is just it was horrible. And
thanks to all the groundwork and the stuff laid out by Donald Trump, who's now.
Well, it's funny. Somebody said that to me recently about it. Of like clearly, someone who's actually over in Europe said it to me that like, you guys are doing a much better job. You guys bought all this vaccine, and we don't have it. So there is something to be said potentially, although I refuse to say anything really positive about Donald Trump But we do have vaccines in the US.
Vaccine. You're able to
We do. We made deals to get them. We have them. I mean, I think maybe Trump thought he was going to be the savior giving them out. And so he bought them. So we have them, and that's great.
Right. I mean, I guess a lot of it is how much was done before. But let's take a step back a moment here. Now, you're my older sister. How much older are you than my younger sister? I'm just kidding. Kath is 5 years younger than I am, just to be official here.
5 and a half. 5 and a half.
5 and a half. That's true. So let's start out with something, because this is something that I still get very confused about. What is an epidemiologist? That's what you do. What is that?
Come on, now the one good thing, there's a few silver linings to COVID. And one of those is that everybody now knows what an epidemiologist is. It has nothing to do with skin. So that.
Oh, really? Let me check that one off down.
So if anyone was going to call in with some skincare questions, don't.
So all of this advice you've been giving me about moles and things over the years.
Yeah, that's all right.
Bullshitting me, I see. Okay.
Exactly. All the tonics I told you to rub on your head have failed.
Well, clearly.
Yeah. So that's what's actually really exciting, is people actually finally understand, what it means. And, it's part of public health, which is like nothing becomes more clear in public health than when we have a epidemic and then a pandemic sweeping the country, sweeping the world essentially. But it's actually understanding disease and the distribution of disease and how it happens, what we can do to prevent it, what are the outcomes in it. That's the sort of field. Epidemiology is the science of public health. And public health is sort of, you think about being a physician and, you're focusing on the health of an individual. Public health is actually just the sort of exciting concept of thinking about a population and just understanding what it means. And I think I think now with COVID, we recognize that it's not just about the individual, it's actually this population perspective. Like herd immunity is a fun thing that we teach. I used to teach students in epidemiology, and it's like this cool concept of this idea that it's a concept about a population. But now everybody's talking about herd immunity, which is so awesome, right? Like that now it's something that everybody knows what it is. Whereas it really is a concept that's somewhat like, requires a little like
esoteric
perspective in a sense, right? Because it's not about yourself. I can't have herd immunity, right? I'm as an individual, right? It's a population, right? So I happen to have already gotten both of my vaccines. So I'm but so it's a population level concept. So epidemiology is really the science of understanding illness in a population and associated morbidity and mortality.
It's of course an interesting moment for that, as you say, because we finally have a huge worldwide pandemic.
Finally, yes.
Well, the other ones, I thought SARS and the rest will get there, but they didn't really get to it. Do you think that is being an epidemiologist these days a little bit like a firefighter in New York after 9/11? And not that you're meeting anybody because you're kind of stuck like the rest of us, but and I guess a lot of what you're doing is but I'm interested what, soon as things will open up and you'll meet somebody and say, oh, I'm an epidemiologist, where in the past, let's be honest, I'm sure they didn't really care too much.
Nobody knew. Yeah.
Right. But now it'd be like, ooh, like it was.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we don't get to go out anymore, so we'll see. But it's definitely, every time, in the Times, there'll be like, we asked 100 epidemiologists. It's like hysterical to me, of all these like surveys they're doing, but maybe, I don't know, maybe we get to be cool. I think simply people understanding what we do is helpful. And I think the lesson we've taught, individuals and kids and so on about public health is a huge lesson, like to actually have people understand that.
It used to be that they only asked dentists. Dentists were always surveyed, right? 1 out of 5 dentists, 4 out of 5 dentists. Now they're surveying others besides the dentist got all the surveys, and now it's branched out. So you're not exactly, yes. So of course, and I'm going to ask you questions. I want to talk about Corona because I think probably more than the rest of us, I'm sure, but that's not exactly in other words, you're not technically working on Corona. Maybe, can you explain briefly, because I for the 20 years you've been doing this, I haven't been able to understand yet. So maybe for our viewers, our thousands of viewers, including Dad, can you explain a little bit like what is your field? Like, what do you do exactly?
Oh, so I don't work in infectious disease epidemiology. And, in fact, sort of epidemiology, kind of classic epidemiology is infectious disease epidemiology, which is what we would consider of, COVID in terms of understanding it. So we think of like classic epidemiology is sort of like the story of cholera. The idea of like people drinking tainted water and then they get sick and they, or illnesses like HIV, classic, epidemiology where people are spreading the disease and understanding how. But, sort of as most of the diseases that we suffer from now are more chronic diseases, that epidemiology is sort of different in terms of what we do. So we're not just understanding how diseases spread like that and what the,
your focus on preventative aspect.
Preventative and also sort of more chronic illness. So I do work focused in geriatrics and palliative medicine. So I study sort of how people, I'm an aging epidemiologist, or I prefer to say, I study the epidemiology of aging. So I understand.
Aren't you an aging epidemiologist that studies the?
Pretty much, yeah, that's the problem. So I study sort of issues around people struggle with as they get older, sort of an understanding how people age. So issues around disability, around dementia, around multi-morbidity of sort of having multiple illnesses, and just sort of how these illnesses, as people are living longer. I also study sort of how it impacts society in terms of cost, in terms of where people live, how they live. And then I do a lot of work with family and thinking about how families are impacted by illness. And so I do a lot of work around caregiving. I also study end-of-life care in particular. So sorry, there's construction going on outside. So I do a lot of work thinking about how people die and where they die and what kind of death they experience and the cost around it and how much people struggle as well as their families struggle around that. So it's
what is that construction?
I don't know.
It's really loud.
What is that? I don't know. I can plug in my headphones. Maybe that'll.
It sounds like your house is being run over by like a.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. It might be like leaf.
You should be worried.
I don't know. I think it's leaf. Kiki, you want to go tell them to stop? I'm on a live Facebook thing. You want to go yell at them?
Well, I mean, if something happens, if it is something dangerous to your house, at least we have a recording of it for insurance purposes.
That's true. I'm gonna put on my headphones so that maybe that'll it'll drown it out for me at least. Sorry, these are my lame headphones that Elijah thinks are really silly. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's a little better because I don't know.
It's better or worse, but yeah, it's fine. No, it's okay.
All right. Sorry.
You're good.
Okay.
So, and I think so. What inspired you? I actually don't know these things, but how did you? In other words, when you're getting into that field, were you okay? You start to get into public health, and you decide to go and you do your PhD. How do you get into the specific field that you're in? In other words, how do you focus on gerontology? How are you aging? Were you always obsessed with people's aging, or you just kind of had a class that was interesting and you sort of, how does that happen?
I felt like it was an area that people didn't want to touch in a way. Like it wasn't so sexy to people in epidemiology, it was really, people were really excited about HIV and people were really interested in cancer. And I found dementia very interesting, but I also noticed people were afraid of it. And it's true. It's actually, when they study it, it's people are terrified of dementia more than anything else, of sort of that experience. And I felt, and even aging in general. And so I think there was something about the fact that people didn't want to go near it that I found appealing in a way. But I also, as a pragmatist, was I think people need to study this. This is the future, right? We're getting older.
The population is aging.
Yeah. So I kind of just felt why isn't everyone studying?
Is there a term for, to me, one of the fascinating things, and I think it's better without the headphones actually, Kath, But I think one of the things that's interesting to me as I look at, the field of public health, or just sort of at the world in some sense, is that, some of these issues are issues that are issues of success. In other words, we're doing such a good job of keeping people alive so much longer. Now you can make a case we could do better, and based on what we know, but leaving that, saying, if you look at life expectancy now versus 100 years ago, I mean, it's a massive difference in most places in the world, almost everywhere, I would guess. So because we're doing a better job of keeping people alive longer, then we suddenly are faced with all these issues that we wouldn't normally be faced with, because at the end of the day, if you live 100 something years, probably somewhere you get some kind of cancerous cells, and all these issues that maybe happen now are almost as if they must happen, just because our bodies eventually kind of things catch up with you. So we're like a victim of our own success as a society in some sense.
Absolutely. That's right. As we've as we're more successful, now sort of with dementia, there's a lot of exciting work of actually therapies that may help with dementia, whereas we really had nothing. So there's really some excitement around that now, but we may have some consequences of that, essentially, right? So if people are going to be living longer with dementia in different ways, what is that going to mean to family members who are, helping them? What does that mean financially? In the US, at least, we have, really no system for long-term care, so it's essentially, financially, it's a struggle. So I think, there's a lot of implications of everything that we do in terms of the scientific progress that we make. But absolutely, sort of everything we do in cancer care now, so many things are a disease that we live with. AIDS is now, like you live with that illness now. That's something, it's a comorbidity. It's totally different now. However, what are the illnesses people work on, cancers associated with having these illnesses and things like that, it becomes a whole new issue. So absolutely, it's quite interesting.
So let's bring it a little bit back to Corona though. So and I'm always interested in this, like what do you know about this? And I don't mean I'm really sort of in the technical aspect of, and in terms of just rates of morbidity rates versus herd immunity and stuff, but like, what do you understand? Is there something that epidemiologists understand about this whole thing that we don't understand, besides like, hey, put on a mask, you idiots, and stop, having bar mitzvahs and doing the rest of these things that people shouldn't be doing in person? Like, is there something that you guys understand that we don't, or is that a reasonable question?
I mean, okay,
Or I can go to my next question, because I kind of feel like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I would say things, well, what we understand around it is that like, this may happen again. I mean, it's not like this is our, hopefully this is our once in a lifetime, but like, this isn't crazy, like it's not like entirely unexpected that something like happened.
Is this something, so I mean, right, is it something that should or could have been expected? That was really, so yes, I mean, in other words, this is not shot, nobody was like, oh my God, I can't believe something like this happened. It's almost as if I can't believe it took this long for it to happen in your world.
Right. I mean, I think it's entirely, exactly. I mean, especially in the sort of global society we live in, like the idea of anything, sweeping the nation and taking over like this. I mean, viruses mutate, you know what I mean? Like, so it's not crazy that something like this could happen. So I think that is an important lesson around it. I think, there's a lot of positives around what we've learned about creating vaccines and how we can do it.
Right, I was going to ask, does this help? In other words, this, I guess, RNA vaccines, which is a totally different field of vaccines, that you're able to kind of put them together much faster. So in the future, you would say, if 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there'll be a different virus that will be, an order of magnitude more prepared because of what we've gone through with this. Not only in terms of people, except for the people behave. I mean, in a vaccine sense, in terms of people's behavior sense, maybe not.
I think what's important is like, you can make a vaccine, right? And in some ways we've been incredibly successful with that. We have the science to do that. we have the kind of studies, like, there's certain types of studies we need to do to really safely, there's a progression of studies, for every kind of anything you were studying, not just the vaccines, to know that there's safety and efficacy in terms of the vaccines. But the issue that's really come up, and I hope we can learn from this, is sort of the, implementation, right? And that's its own science of like, okay, we have a vaccine, then what on earth are we going to do with it? Like, how do we get people to use it, right? So there's huge issues around that. And then how do we like disseminate? Right? So how do we really make this happen? So that's actually been a really tricky part. And I would say in, the academic field, in terms of the vaccine rollout, where what we're talking about all the time is equity, sort of this idea. And, it's not at all surprising, not at all. Everything kind of comes down to that in the scientific research of sort of this.
What has surprised you? Talk about things that are, that were expected. What has surprised you as a scientist, as an epidemiologist, about Corona? Has it surprised you how fast the vaccine came out? Has it surprised you how people are willing to take something that's been developed as quickly, how unwilling they are, how people are against masks? Is it the political aspect that's been surprising to you? What has surprised you?
Well, I have to say, it feels like pre-January, it was hard to process a lot of it because we were living in this world of anti-science. So it was very difficult, so everything then was like a shock because it felt like you were living in a world of misinformation, which is one of the most terrifying things that can happen, in a scientific community when you have like a crisis, so like that was actually terrifying. And people would ask me all the time, they're like, should I be worried? What's going to happen? When am I going to be able to travel? And I was like, we have no idea until we know what's happening with this election. I was like, there's nothing, I can't tell you anything because so it was really, really surprising, sort of the anti-mask stuff is shocking, it's shocking to see that. But I have to say, there were a lot of things that I felt worried about. I felt really worried when some of the gatherings started, and I was worried that they would happen in a safe way, but they did. People did gather safely. I was worried when there were so many protests happening, and I thought, oh my goodness, people are going to get sick and we're going to spread. So that was worrisome. Like, how do you kind of make things happen? I mean, the problem is you do have all these financial aspects of it.
Of course, it's not, people say.
And that's going to have long-term issues. The impact of that is huge.
And different countries have dealt with that differently. In Poland, here we have a situation now where in Poland, restaurants are supposed to be closed, but some of them are opening, and they're saying, and they're pointing to a law, to the Polish law, which says that if the authorities close a restaurant, they're supposed to give them some sort of, you're supposed to get some financial help. And because the government at this point isn't offering that help, they feel that they're allowed to open. And it's easy for us to say, oh, sure, everything should be closed and get the, have the COVID end as soon as possible. But at the end of the day, if people are starving and lose their homes and lose their work and stuff, then maybe they would rather, especially something with not such a high morbidity for younger people, right? If I'd say, oh, we don't know. And to me, it's not even about getting it. It's actually, people that have problems with their memory and their fuzzy thinking months and months later is that, but if I'm going to lose my business and lose my home, maybe I'll take something which could be, I could have no problem with it at all and get past it and not even know that I had it except for a positive test. So it's very difficult to just, this is a particularly difficult one, I think, from a public health point of view, because it's not like it's just killing everybody.
It's a cost benefit, exactly. But every public health situation is like that. Everyone is sort of like, what's the cost to this? What's the benefit? Like, that's why there's always a political element to it, right? So that's why you don't just have the epidemiologists. We're just the scientists. We can give you the numbers and tell you this, but actually you need sort of like the policy. Like, public health is about all of those components. It just doesn't just work in like a vaccine development. It just doesn't. I think the harder part is that. The harder part is sort of the teaching, the education around it, and the policy, and thinking it through.
But if there were if this was, in other words, if you got it, it killed you, let's say, which luckily it's not, it would be politically, in other words, the more difficult it is, the more deadly the disease is or the virus is, then I would say my understanding would be the easier it would be politically.
Right, in some ways. That's right. That's right. And there's all this variation on it. And, early on, we just didn't know, right? It was very much of like, how does it work? How does it spread? It was like live action trying to figure this out in like March and April and May, like we didn't even know what people were dying of. Like we're doing all these studies now going back and being like presumed COVID. This is like a whole thing now.
Just looking at increase in Poland, a lot of it is about the numbers are, let's say X amount of people died of COVID that they know in Poland. But then when they look at the death rate for 2020, there's, it's like 2 times higher. So, what is it? Coincidence?
Right.
So
no, it's right.
People that are dying because of COVID are not being treated as COVID deaths.
That's right. But I would also say what's really even more interesting is this, 2020 and 2021, it's going to have implications for decades. You know what I mean? We're going to see it in like healthcare research. Like I do a lot of research and I look at big data sets and we do these analyses and we look at like increases in cancer and dementia. I don't even know where to begin with this because it's such a blip in terms of services. You have this like who died, you have a competing risk of who died in COVID, who are the survivors, which nursing home residents survived COVID and why. Like there's so much that has happened. But the other things, to think about is like the impact on kids, for example, of a year of their life without sports and activities. And what does that mean, right? And the social isolation for issues around mental health, huge issues. And who knows where that goes, right? So, demographers, sociologists, we're all like in academia, it's like dissertations for lifetimes around this issue, like really. And we have no idea.
Did Dr. Fauci do a good job? Has he done a good job?
I would say, yeah, just holding his own. I feel like the political side of it, like, I don't know, like.
Not easy.
To hold your scientific integrity and deal with all those politics. You don't usually have both of those skills, because it's a totally different skill set, right? To get it, to sit there and understand sort of the science and to be able to address lunacy as I see, but that is public health. Like that's sort of why public health is kind of fun in a way of like, it's not just like you're treating this disease, you actually are kind of understanding.
When you were interested in this, I remember when you were back in the day in college, I wanted you to go and become an MD because then you would be able to provide pharmaceuticals for the families. But you didn't listen to me.
I think
you went into this whole public health thing, which I guess has worked out all right for you. But still, you do. I will give you this. You do at least have access to doctors that you work with who can provide medication if we need it.
Yes. I think everyone always thought that I'd become a psychiatrist. I think that's what we felt was needed, specifically. but no, and it's.
What drew you into public health as opposed, because this is also something I remember, like.
Why didn't I didn't really want to like touch people. Like I didn't really like that side of it.
I hear you. I wouldn't want to.
I kind of didn't really want to do that.
Touching strangers is weird.
But I also felt like, I agree. And it's going to be weirder from now on. Like you're going to want to like kiss hello to everybody. Like we used to.
In Europe, plus here, we're in Europe.
It's going to feel so weird.
All we do is kiss.
I know, it's going to feel so strange, like so strange.
I'm going to say my sister, by the way, anytime you should know that in the past, I was, of course, always quite embarrassed by what you, no, I'm just kidding, but about you being an epidemiologist. No, but now these days, anytime anybody's talking with me about Corona, I'm like, excuse me, my sister's an epidemiologist. And she says, whether or not I'm actually representing your opinion is secondary. But I always drop my sister's an epidemiologist line and I get the last word on every Corona argument. Put that 6th mask on at the same time. My sister said it's the way to do it. She's an epidemiologist.
I'm glad you're using it. I don't think I'm taking advantage of it enough.
No, I do. I
really should be using that. It's just that I'm not going anywhere. As a good epidemiologist, I'm not hanging around with any people. I'm completely isolated.
Now tell us about the relationship. As I understand it, Mount Sinai was actually where Mount Sinai was. It was founded. The actual Mount Sinai is Mount Sinai. That's why you work at Mount Sinai. There's a whole biblical aspect to it.
right? Can't you see from the background right there?
I feel like that's, yeah, it's like Ararat behind. I feel like there's a, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe changing gears a little bit about talking about Poland, because enough about Corona. So, how many times have you been to Poland?
Let me think. I enough that I have to. Well, I've been to Poland before you went to Poland. Thank you very much.
That is true.
In like 2000. So that was my first time.
You were traveling around in between grad school and something, and you decided to go around Europe, and you went to Poland.
I went to Poland. Yeah, I went all around Poland. And it's funny because it's a special place to me, not just because of you living there, and not just because it's a special place, but because in Krakow, I met like two of my very close friends in a hostel, and I don't know which one. We never figured that out since you've known it. But like I met friends there that I then I'm still friends with, and we traveled around together. So it was. When
you first came to Krakow, it wasn't as much on the tourist map. It wasn't an obvious place. These days, if you were going to travel around Europe, and somebody was naming, 5 cities, whatever, Krakow would come up. It's one of the most visited cities and beautiful, obviously. Mm-hmm. But then it wasn't. When I first came here, and when you came earlier, it wasn't as known. The whole tourist aspect. It was like, oh, really? Krakow? What's that about?
Yeah, I think I started my trip. I had my friend Yulia, who you probably remember from Germany. Yeah, so I started visiting with her. So that's why maybe I was thinking of Poland.
And what about and of course your last time was for a ride for the living.
That's correct. Absolutely. Yes, but not year, of course.
You'll have to update your official bio there. I see it didn't make mention of
no, it did not. But in between, I certainly visited. I brought Mom there one year.
Our mom. So this is a tough year for us. Besides Corona and all that, we did lose our mom. Not to Corona,
which is a personal victory for me, actually.
Yeah, sure enough. Everything. She had every other malady.
Pretty much,
but not Corona.
I mean, we didn't do an antibody test. She probably did. Let's face it.
She could have had it.
Probably did. I mean, I probably did. I mean,
that's the thing. It's like, so my understanding, and again, if let's say I had Corona a year ago, I wouldn't have antibodies now. So there's no way of knowing really. Maybe there's some super advanced test, but how would you know?
Correct. You can't tell. You absolutely can't tell. And it should be known that I know people who, by the way, Kiki is in the background and she just provided this note, but of course I apparently have major technical problems.
No, I see that you sort of, it's a matrix thing with your filter. You're sort of holding something, but we don't.
Okay, yeah.
No,
but Kiki's note said there it is.
It says Elijah.
What about when you brought Elijah? Yes, my other trip to Poland.
You came for my 40th birthday.
This was the best thing I ever pulled. It was worth it, and it was a painful trip, I'm going to say, because on the overnight, we flew to London, and Elijah was a baby.
This was 11 years ago.
Yes, he was a baby. And or I guess he was a year and a half.
You can tell the story that it wasn't a play. I didn't know about the trip.
No, this is why it was brilliant. It was like the best thing I ever did. And he was a baby and he had like this, but we didn't tell him. We didn't tell John. We planned this thing as a surprise because he was turning 40, which at the time seemed really old and like a really big deal. I would like to say. And the idea was we were going to surprise him because especially then too, he was really excited because he had this nephew and he really so we talk on.
I wasn't visiting the US as often as I do.
No, not at all. So we planned this thing. And of course, getting something over on John, who is a little bit of a control freak, is just a huge accomplishment. This should be on my bio.
That should be as well. A control freak and someone with a sneaky mind myself.
I know, it's true. And so anyway, we did the thing, we coordinated with not him. That's what was brilliant.
Yeah, people on the staff here knew about it.
People knew, but
you had a stroller waiting for you.
So I got there and it was horrible. We had this terrible flight and Elijah wouldn't sleep and we had to hold him and it was awful. And then we got to Heathrow and you can't sit anywhere comfortably in Heathrow if you're not a member of one of the it was terrible. And so we were just like exhausted and like dying. And we flew into Warsaw, and then we had to like get a train. But who met us at the train and brought us to your apartment in Krakow?
Nawrocki.
Yes. He met us in Warsaw, put us on the train, took us there, handed us in, and then we go into your apartment. You have no idea. And we send Elijah in, like toddling in, all happy. And you're like lying there like with a laptop.
Lying there in bed, I remember. Yeah.
Like, and you look up and you see him. And, Elijah at that age, they look so different. You like hadn't seen him in a while. And you were just like speechless. Like that was it. You had nothing to say because like we had gotten
the first and last time that I was speaking in my life.
Truly, it's a truly, and it was worth it, even though I was exhausted. It was like a long, painful journey. It was totally worth it.
In our family, in the hierarchy of things in our family, nothing is greater than for something to be considered a good one. And that was a good one. You got me on that one.
So every time I forget his birthday or don't do anything or barely
cancel my New Yorker subscription.
I don't have to do anything ever again.
Cancel my New Yorker subscription.
Mine was tight.
Take away my Netflix.
Started the New Yorker. Hey, you're not even
Netflix.
I started the New Yorker subscription. Like that's a gift.
I have to say, not to just make it just totally like go off topic, but Kasia knows about Netflix. Like people around the world don't know what Netflix used to be. And you always, to your credit, and people watching will find it hard to believe that my sister used to be really pretty cool. And she was at the very sort of the starting point of many trends. And she really was ahead of her time in terms of just eco-friendly things and bicycling and dumpster diving and all flannel, lots of things. But you had a net 20 years ago, I remember, and Americans know about this, but like Kasia, it blew her mind yesterday. I told her last night we were going to bed, and I said, Kath had, because we were talking about Netflix, and I said, it used to be that Netflix had these little red envelopes, and they would mail it. You would mail it. You had a list. You would mail it, put it in the mail. And Kasia, it blew her mind what Netflix used to be. But you had Netflix. Yeah. You had it 20 years ago.
And I got it as a present for Mikey for like Hanukkah one year. I got him. In fact, I think that he still has his Netflix subscription based on what I got for him.
Still be using the CDs, mailing them back.
Actually, Mikey probably is still mailing.
For the nostalgia aspect of it, Mikey's still using.
You know what? I missed that. I have to say, like,
so cool.
I kind of liked that part of it. It was sort of fun in a way. Although because that
was revolutionary. Now
overwhelming.
Streaming.
It's too overwhelming, the choices now. I don't like it. But you know what?
Was fascinating. Throwing stuff in the mail, having stuff come in the mail. It was great.
It was great. There was something really fun about that. But I actually really do miss going to a video store and like flipping, or even like flipping through CDs, like the clink, clink, clink when you're looking.
No, we're tactile. Listen, we're human. For 99.9% of our development, we touch things and move things. And now the idea of everything screens and digital.
Right now it's like this. I know.
So our niece, was over the other day, Yulia, the little one who's a year.
You mean, I'm sorry, your favorite niece? Kiki.
My favorite niece, Kiki. One of my favorite nieces. Kiki's like your top 5, Kiki. So I'm just kidding. So, and she's 1 year old and she's going like this with her finger. And it's like,
oh yeah.
Hi, Kiki.
There she is. Hi. Oh, I should turn off the filter. Sorry. Kiki, turn off this filter. What Kiki likes to come in and
mess with your filter. So we don't see your messy house.
Oh,
there we go.
Oh wait, Kiki's doing blur. No, that's blurring you. Put on none. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Kiki. So just a little bit about the Netflix. Kath, as we so a few things we always get to as we toward the end of my AMA. And by the way, this is the 51st week I've done it.
Very nice.
Thank you very much.
Don't people call in and ask questions?
That was the idea. People ask questions.
Isn't it ask me anything?
Well, I'm asking you anything.
You're asking me anything. Oh, okay. It's fine. It's fine with me.
I think after 1 week, we realized that I'm not that interesting, and I don't know enough people. I don't know to ask me weeks and weeks worth of questions. So we had to pivot a little bit after 1 week.
Fair. Okay, got it.
I have to bring on guests.
Okay, fair enough.
So are you team Latka or team Hamantash?
Hamantash.
Oh, sorry. Kiki is answering.
Hamantash, duh.
Okay, Kiki.
Cookies are amazing.
Kiki loves to bake, so she's on Hamantash. Kath, will you go along with that?
Vodka.
Ooh.
Well,
I'm a
wait,
savory versus a sweet.
Wait,
I'm also Latka.
applesauce?
Or,
Applesauce is
or
yes?
wait, is it, wait,
Versus plain, right? Is that
oh,
what
versus plain. I'm a plain guy, but I'll tell you what they do on latkes here in Poland, because latkes are really from here. Well, and anywhere else with the potato, like South America. But we have mushroom sauce on our latkes. No, it's good.
That would
So
ruin
this is my niece. This is my niece. This is my niece, Kiki Noise. Hi, Kiki. Kiki, how old are
Be
you?
her own guest. She wants her own
Oh,
episode.
you want to be your own guest, Kiki?
Yes, she can handle it.
All right, just tell us the last, because she likes to bake. What's the last thing you baked?
What was the last thing I baked?
Was it Ricky's cake?
Oh yeah, it was a double layer lemon cake for my dog Ricky's birthday.
A cake for the dog?
Yes, but he wasn't able to eat it, of course. So
you baked the cake in honor of Ricky, and then you ate it.
yeah,
We adopted Ricky a year. We were celebrating 1 year.
I see. I see. Yesterday was our 3 years with our dog. And your friend Jeffrey and Lori Rolat, 7 years with their dog yesterday. So.
And did anyone else bake a cake?
No cake, but we.
Okay, tell them about the cake.
So it was a lemon layer cake. It had 2 layers. It had jam in the middle and vanilla buttercream all around, and then it had crushed up freeze-dried raspberries to make it look nice and red, and then I piped little yellow flowers around it.
Kiki, that sounds lovely. I'm very excited to receive a cake when I come to New York eventually.
Ooh,
And I will make with you.
absolutely.
There's only 2.
What
I
kind
will
of
make.
cake?
Well, I'm a cookie guy. I'm gonna make you chocolate chip cookies.
Okay, I can make like bars.
I'm in. Kasha likes bars, like granola bars. So let me ask your mom the final question as we draw to a close here, Kiki. Thank you very much, and we'll have you on your own show, Kiki.
Okay.
Kiki show.
Maybe Kiki and Alex can have a show.
Sure.
Kiki and Alex this summer can have their own show.
I agree. I'm in. Kath, I always ask everyone, what are your 3 favorite films?
How about 3 of my favorite films?
No, I believe I said your 3 favorite films, but all right.
No, but that's really hard.
3 of your favorite films.
Thank you. I would say, because I'm talking to you,
Sound of Music.
That's one of my favorites.
Okay, so come on, you're 3. Either if you don't name them, I'm gonna name them. So.
No, you probably could. Okay, Princess Bride, I would have to say.
Classic.
And because you know why? I get to watch it with the kids, and it's still good, and it's good for anyone, any age. You know,
It's brilliant.
it's just one of those.
Because he wrote the screenplay.
So brilliant. But Kiki hasn't read that book yet. We were trying to decide if she should read it.
You said the movie was better.
I told her the movie was better, but what do you think?
I don't know.
I told her it was one of the few times the movie was
I
better.
wouldn't put it that way. I'd say it's one of the few times that the movie doesn't disappoint. But I wouldn't say better. It's just different. It's a different
So
thing.
you
But
should
it's
still,
good.
so you think she should read it?
I have
Read the
a lot
book.
of
What else
books on
besides
my-
Princess Bride, Kath? 2 more movies?
I kind of was thinking Heathers. I kind of have to say,
They're on mine. Come on, of course.
because you know,
Clearly.
because there's something so brilliant, but also it becomes like, you know, at this point it's like an emotional thing. You know, it's sort of just
I think Heather stands the test of time.
absolutely. So yeah. And I might say, and although I have not seen it in a while, which is not okay, I might have to like call out to like Thelma and Louise.
Thelma and Louise.
Yeah, just as like something just like important and like impactful in a way.
Because you
Seen it
drive
recently.
you drive similarly to the way they drive at the end.
Pretty much. I don't know. I haven't seen it in a while, but like there is, so I'm going to see it again and decide if it still like kind of holds that sort of weight in my mind. But you're right. Sound of Music, I do, but like I kind of can't really sit through it. It's like 4 hours long.
Yeah, it does. It seems if it's not 4 hours long, it seems like it's 4 hours long.
It does. It does. We used to let, when Elijah was little, we watched it with him and we stopped it at the wedding. Like we just stopped it and he didn't even know, you know, and he watched it with us and he liked it because we like didn't put the whole Nazi thing in, you know, like you can just watch the whole movie. It can be complete.
It's interesting here in Poland when we watch it, we only watch the Nazi thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Kath, thank you for this. Stay safe. Say hi to Phil and Elijah and the rest of the family. Thank you, Kiki, as well.
Yeah, want to say bye?
I will hopefully see you soon.
Yes, Kiki's supposedly in school right now. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Kiki, get back to
I'm
school.
almost done with all my work. I
Yeah.
only have
Bye.
one.
Bye, you guys.
During
I have
COVID.
2.5 hours of work, but I can just do it in like
Bye, you guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.